6'11", pushing 7 foot. He's 21 years old. He's been playing in Australia, and he is, as ESPN puts it, we'll just read you their little breakdown, strengths and weaknesses. Strengths for Alex Tuhey: an intelligent, versatile forward whose maturity stood out in the NBL and at the NBA Combine. So he's somebody that came over and did participate in the Combine, but has already been obviously playing with the Sydney Kings professionally. Weaknesses: just an average athlete. Has made strides as a shooter. He will need to become more consistent from beyond the arc to carve out a role at the NBA level. And so, yeah, great feel for the game, but not a great shooter. And he's somebody that can defend a little bit. He had a little under 1.5 steals in about 23 minutes per game in his most recent season, his second season with the Sydney Kings, so basically starting over there at 19 years old. But he's about 8 points, 4 boards as a rookie going back a couple of years ago, and then bumped that up to 10.5 points, 4 boards with the 1.5 steals there, and had committed to play college at Gonzaga before joining the NBL's Next Stars program and then ending up with the Sydney Kings. So Alex Tuhey, not the most athletic, but intelligent and versatile and can defend a little bit and a smart player. We'll see what Mike Dunleavy has to say about whether or not he's somebody that the Warriors believe is going to be coming over and looking to be a part of the roster, whether it's on a two-way contract or if the Warriors are able to and believe he's worthy of one of the 15 roster slots that they will have afforded to them. Right now, the Warriors currently only with 9 roster spots that are taken. And they've got some free agents. Obviously, Jonathan Kuminga's among them, Kevon Looney, Gary Payton II, and others. But we'll hear from Mike Dunleavy and get everybody up to speed on just exactly, and John Jay. Kerr's going to use him as a center. Yeah, I mean, that was my first thought. 6'8", 6'11", wingspan. Can he guard 5s? No, and obviously trying to get a center is going to be something of high priority. But the Warriors, again, scheduled to be on the clock at number 59 to close out the proceedings tonight in round 2. There were a number of players that had been linked to the Warriors at 41 before they made the trade with Phoenix. And again, look, there are a number of players who obviously second-round picks, Draymond Green among them, Nikola Jokic, great second-round picks, Jalen Brunson, Chris Middleton, I think, is somebody who's had a wonderful career, been an NBA champion. I think they mentioned him at the top of the ESPN broadcast. You can find great players in the second round. But I think the reality is, for the Warriors, where they're at right now with the 9 players that are under contract currently and their willingness to look to add and be a championship contender, right off the top, I wouldn't consider anybody that the Warriors are going to pick at 41, and certainly not Alex Tuhey, who they picked at 52, to be somebody that you would pencil in to have a role. Now, that being said, on this year's team, you just never expect it. And I would say that even more so about Tuhey than even somebody like Quentin Post, who the Warriors selected a year ago. And I probably said the same thing that night as we did this show. You can't really expect anybody picked to have a role, but the Warriors were able to find somebody that did in Quentin Post have a role by the middle of the season that carried forward into the playoffs. But I think that team was more still trying to figure out exactly what's going on there. And we also have a little bit of breaking news here right off the top. That's a nice segue into, what the Warriors going to do at 59. Well, they have moved up, according to Jake Fisher, to number 56. Number 56. So they are going to be on the clock. Memphis officially is on the clock at 56, but per Jake Fisher, the Warriors trading up, and it's going to be Florida guard Will Richard that's going to be the selection at number 56. So I know there was a lot, and I was getting into the names that went in the 30 to 40 range. But, yeah, the Warriors trading up to 56. And, again, according to Jake Fisher, it's going to be Will Richard, the guard from the University of Florida, that's going to be the selection at 56 when Mark Tatum comes up to the podium and ultimately makes the announcement over in Brooklyn. So 808 KNBR. 415-808-5627. That is the number to give us a call or shoot us a text, the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line, as the Warriors on the clock and more trades to be announced here. And the Suns trade with the Warriors is now official, that 41 for 52 swap that we mentioned. And here comes the official announcement. Yeah, Will Richard is the selection at number 56. So quick here as we set up some phone calls, and we'll get to some of those other names. But, yeah, versatile guard. And let me scroll through and get my specs here on Will Richard as the Warriors wind up making that selection. And I got to think that's going to mean that they're going to be done for the night. But, yeah, I think, again, now he's somebody that we'll have to also wait and hear from Mike Dunleavy as to what the planned role is. But I think he's somebody that could be potentially, in the mix for a back end of the roster, kind of a selection that, that could be a two-way type player. Catch-and-shoot player. He's got a 6'9" wingspan, even at 6'4", 206, so he's a sturdy guard. 6'9" wingspan. 3-and-D role for Florida. Obviously, they won the national championship, and they came through and ran through San Francisco in the West Regional before they hit the Final Four. But strengths, catch-and-shoot player with the length, had success in the 3-and-D role at Florida, and in the weaknesses, a bit limited offensively, which caps his upside. Unlikely he'll command a larger role. Doesn't have an ideal height for an NBA wing. So he's a 6'4" player that basically is more of a wing. So he's a small wing, but has a long wingspan and can shoot it at a high level. Average athlete. And again, somebody that was part of the rotation for Florida as they made the rounds to the national championship victory. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. A couple of back-end players in Alex Tuhey and Will Richard going to the Warriors at 52 and now 56 in the draft. So the Warriors come into the night with number 41, and then they wind up moving off of 41 for 52 and 59, and then they bump up to the number 56 spot. Let's sneak in a call here, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We're also going to get into, of course, the latest rumors and reports as they relate to Jonathan Kuminga, because the Warriors' entire offseason, of course, is going to hinge on Jonathan Kuminga, but the Warriors making a couple of picks. Alex Tuhey, the wing from Australia, and Will Richard, the guard, undersized wing from the University of Florida. The Warriors' two picks here at 52 and 56 as everything gets sorted out in the second round of the draft. Let's get to the phones. Joe and Clayton here on the Sports Leader. What's going on tonight, Joe?
Hey, how are you? So I'm a big Warriors fan. I think we all are. But I'll tell you what, Sacramento picked up a great kid in Maxime Renault from France. On the U19 team, he got a gold medal, scored 26 points. I was watching my alma mater, St. Mary's, and innocently picked up a Stanford game. And I'm like, who is this 7'1" kid that can strap the three, pass like Larry Bird, maybe a little slow on the feet, but his EQ and IQ for the game off the charts. Seals well with his back to the basket. And can shoot the free throw. And I know we were kind of with, the way the second round went, we got caught up there as Warriors because of all the trades and things that were going on. But he was projected to go 25 with the Celtics. Sacramento gets him 41 or 42. And I'm telling you, if you look at his upside, he was the most improved player 2 years ago in the Pac-12, then was second team. And this year he was first team as a forward at 7'1" ACC. And the dude can flat out ball out, man. He's a throwback. He's got a little
I think it's a good pick.
Too,
I think it's a good pick for them. I really do. I think he's somebody that's going to have, I don't know what the ceiling is in terms of stardom or anything like that, but I think he's somebody that projects to have a nice NBA career at a minimum. I'm not going to cap what his ability can be, but yeah, his skill set, as you laid it out, he was somebody that really wasn't part of the conversation as it related to the Warriors because he was somebody that was projected to go late first round, early second round. People didn't think it was going to get to where the Warriors were going to be at 41, let alone obviously 52 and now 56. So I think that is a real good pick. Maxime Renault, the center from Stanford, and a good little breakdown. They've got a lot of different ways they can go 90 miles down the road. They've got kind of an older team with a bunch of players that they're probably not going to win with. They've got a few more younger players. They traded into the first round last night, got Renault tonight, but not a lot of other real quality young talent. So they're kind of in the middle. It'll be interesting to see whether they look to go younger and kind of tear it down and do more of a rebuild, or whether they look to try and augment with some of the veterans who aren't necessarily winning players that they have remaining on their roster. But I agree with you on the pick. Thanks for the call, Joe.
I got a question about Marcelona.
Sure. About who now?
Played for us. Yeah, Marcelonis Augustus from St. Mary's College, combo guard.
Yep.
I don't know, man. His dad was a strong guy off the elbow, just like his son. Now, Jay Billis was talking about Nemhart from Gonzaga, but I say, he's probably a two-way player, G League, NBA, but that kid's got to get to the Warriors right now and give him a shot this summer. He's so dang strong, and he had a hell of a junior and senior year at St. Mary's College, really put up the numbers, and is really a strong kid and a good, humble kid. But how about we don't give him a shot? What do you think?
Well, we'll see. At this point, I think if it's anything, it's going to be somebody that would be, maybe competing for a two-way type spot. And I think even maybe the picks that the Warriors have made tonight already would be potentially competing for those spots. I think the Warriors are really looking to get more veteran-laden here. They only have 9 players under contract right now. But you are going to need players that can fill out the back end of the 15, and you're also going to have a couple 3 of the two-way guys that can go up and down via the G League. But, yeah, Nemhard was somebody that I thought had the potential, and he still hasn't been selected. I thought he was somebody, too, that the Warriors might look at with one of these picks as he slipped down the board. Thanks, Joe. Good stuff.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, good phone call. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. It is John Dickinson here, our sports phone, Dubs OT, Warriors draft offseason free agency special. We're off and rolling here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR to jump in and join the conversation. We'll get into the YouTube chat coming up here as well. We got Kyle Haar in our San Francisco studios as well at the controls. Warriors have made a couple of picks again. Alex Tuhey, the 6'8" Australian forward at number 52 after the Warriors traded back from 41. And then the Warriors also making another selection. They were set at 59. They moved up to 56. And it's Will Richard, the guard guard forward, really more of an undersized wing in terms of height, but has a 6'9", 6'10" wingspan. He's somebody I think that has the potential to get an immediate roster spot, or at least be competing for a two-way or 15th man type of a spot for the Warriors this season as they look to hammer out some of their depth. But we'll round out some of those other names as well, and there were a ton of names that just went off the board in the 30s. As you look at Sion James, somebody that Warriors potentially. He went 34 to Charlotte. Chaz Lanier went 37, the Tennessee sharpshooter. Detroit ended up getting him. Elijah Martin went to Toronto at 39. I mean, Micah Peavy from Georgetown. Like, all of these players were guys that were potentially Kobe Brea was another one. He ended up going 41 in a pick that the Warriors made to send to Phoenix, making that selection for Phoenix in the agreed-upon trade to move from 41 to 52. So a lot of those names that were linked to the Warriors at 41 weren't going to be there, and it kind of makes me wonder if the Warriors knew that maybe those players weren't going to be there and they weren't really compelled by the next wave of guys and felt that they could dip back into the 50s as they did and wind up walking out the door with a couple of picks and players competing for roster spots toward the beginning of the season when things hit in the end of September and October. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We'll take a quick timeout. We'll come back and we'll reset everything, but we'll also set the table for the latest on Jonathan Kuminga, because I think we're going to start to see, and there's already another bit of breaking news as far as a free agent that's going to be going off the board coming up here with one of the teams that just made a deep run. So we'll let you know about that, and we'll get into the latest rumors on Jonathan Kuminga and how the Warriors fill out this roster from the 9 players they currently have under contract, the 2 that they've drafted tonight, and really the 3 or 4 spots in between that are the most important moves yet to be made. It's all coming up right here on the Sports Leader.
want your reaction, so give us a ring or blow up the text line at 415-808-KNBR. This is Sports Phone KNBR. Streaming live at twitch.tv/The Sports Leader.
While we were in the break, the Golden State Warriors selected Alex Tui, Jonathan.
Malika, the third Australian we've seen selected and the third member of the NBA Global Academy. Tough, smart, energetic forward in a Jetty Osman mold, standing 6'11" in shoes, 6'11" wingspan, strong feel for the game, two-way versatility, gets in passing lanes, does a little bit of everything in both ends of the floor. Intriguing pick for the Golden State Warriors.
As part of a deal to be finalized later, the Phoenix Suns are trading to the Golden State Warriors the draft rights to Alex Tui, the 52nd pick. With the 56th pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Memphis Grizzlies select Will Richard from the University of Florida.
All right, so a lot to get into there as you hear the deputy commissioner make the announcement, and a little bit of a breakdown, courtesy of ESPN, on Alex Tui, who the Warriors select at number 52. We're back here on our Sports Phone Dubs OT draft and free agency special here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, it's John Dickinson with you. Alex Tui, number 52, you hear the breakdown there. Will Richard, the Warriors end up selecting at 56 in a trade-up from 59. So the Warriors took 41 at the beginning of the day. They turned it into 52 and 59. They took Tui at 52 and then moved up from 59 to 56 to take Florida guard Will Richard. Now, Anthony Slater of The Athletic, currently, at least for now, has a note on the compensation that the Warriors gave up. They gave up the rights to Justinian Jessup, who was selected, I believe, back in 2020, and a top 50 protected 2032 second-round pick. That goes to Memphis to jump up 3 spots to get Florida guard Will Richard. So the Warriors have a couple of new players on the board. Also, as is the case once the draft ends and the draft is now over, a lot of teams start immediately signing two-way contracts for undrafted players. Players that are not drafted are free game and can be signed to two-way contracts, can be signed to active rosters if there's somebody that really a franchise believes has slipped through the cracks. Also, though, Kyle Haar, there was a bit of big news that via Shams, or might have been via Brian Windhorst, actually. It was Miles Turner. Miles Turner intending to re-sign with the Indiana Pacers. Miles Turner intending to re-sign with the Indiana Pacers. Let me make sure I get that note and give proper credit here. As I mentioned it, so many things are happening rapid fire that we're trying to keep everybody updated on as it relates to this, that you want to make sure you're up to speed. And yeah, there's the feed flooded by the undrafted guys. This is like a Larry Krueger dream. Like, this is like a Krug dream, all these undrafted guys signing their two-way contracts here. But, yeah, you look at Miles Turner, and this via Brian Windhorst. The Pacers are preparing to re-sign Miles Turner. Indiana will go into the luxury tax to do it, but they're gonna bring back Miles Turner. Obviously, the horrible news on Tyrese Halliburton in Game 7 of the Finals, just heartbreaking, as he became the third star player in the playoffs to sustain an Achilles tear. And it's one thing to lose Game 7 of the Finals, and look, Warriors fans know this, although they knew it after they had won 3 championships. I mean, it's one thing to have one season wrecked because of an injury like that, but it winds up wrecking 2 seasons. And obviously it happened with Durant, who was going to leave anyway in 2019. But then Klay Thompson in the elimination game against the Raptors had the knee. And then on draft night after COVID ended up with the Achilles that kept him out until the early part of 2022. But yeah, I mean, it's one thing to have a trade that an injury that means you can't win that game or that year's title after coming so far, but it also screws up your next season. And that's basically where the Pacers sit now. Basically didn't win it on Sunday. Oklahoma City did, and they take the title. And now Indiana obviously not going to be a team that's going to be able to win an NBA championship next year, barring some semblance of a miracle and Tyrese Halliburton being able to come back in 10 months as opposed to 12 and be effective, which I would never count on. Andis Brown, great to see some of the regulars in the chat. Can any of these players play the 3 technique? Kruger somewhere asking. No, I love Larry. Going to be doing some shows with Larry, by the way, coming up here in the next couple of weeks. This is kind of tipping off a big run, just to let everybody know. Big run of JD. We got the show tonight, and then have a light weekend. Got one more little just kind of chill weekend, and then I'm going to be in for Papa all next week up until the 3rd, and then I'm going to be in with Krug for Murph and Marcus on July 3rd, and you bet your ass we're going to be talking about the Warriors and free agency and the Giants, of course, and we'll mix in some 49ers, even though we're kind of in the NFL dead zone a little bit. If a dead zone like that even exists, I really don't think it does at all. Read the Steed, which Papa? I'm going to be in for Greg Papa. So I'm going to be riding with Greg Silver next week. Fair question, Reed. Fair question. Robert Brown, the more JD, the better. There's going to be a lot of JD. All 4 days next week before the 4th of July holiday, and then all 5 days the following week, I'm going to be with Krug and with Greg Silver, and then I'm going to take a little week off, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to be with Papa the following week. Greg Papa. I'm going to be with. So I'm basically filling in for Silver for I'm filling in for Greg Papa for 2 weeks, and then I'm filling in for Greg Silver for like a week and a half. So it's going to be I'm going to get a lot of 10 to 2 JD coming up here. Let's get a couple of chats, and then we'll set the table here. And Kyle's also going to let me know how many spots we have to get in before the top of the 8 o'clock hour, because that's always something when we end up in this slot that we have to make sure we don't miss spots. So I don't need to get my guy Kyle in trouble, or he gets an email, and you got to get it. We can't have that you can't have it in January. You really can't have it in June. You really can't have it in June. JMU 22, Thule, probably just another Nico Mannion, Justinian Jessup, Alan Smiley-Geach. We connecting, baby, now with Curves connectors. I don't know. Again, those were prior regime selections. I think the one thing we can say is, Mike Dunleavy's, has he had an unuseful pick to this point? I mean, I think you have to give Mike Dunleavy, and that doesn't mean Tui's going to come in and play. That doesn't mean Will Richard's going to come in and play, but you do need, I feel like Tui is somebody that might be going to stay over in Australia and play for a couple of years. He's only 21, so I wonder if he ends up staying. And again, when Mike Dunleavy meets with the media over at Chase Center tonight, we'll try to make sure we can get some clips of that. But I would think, and yeah, Pat H. Dunleavy found some value in TJD and Post from the second round. Pajemski's wound up being a nice pick as well. So I think we've seen a little bit of a shift in terms of making a little bit more out of these back end of the first round and second round picks, to where it's just, let's find somebody that can be useful in a pinch at a minimum. So I agree with that, Pat H, to be sure. But I also, Tui, again, that's my first thought on Tui is, would he stay maybe and play in Australia for a couple of years, or at least a year, and he would basically be somebody that the Warriors wouldn't need to carry a roster spot for. It also, to me, feels like Will Richard is somebody that's like 15th man or immediate two-way material. Like, he's somebody that I think Yeah, Andis, according to Billis, Richard can defend. Again, he's 6'4", but you're 6'4", you got a 6'9" plus wingspan. You can probably defend. Now he's big. He's built. He's thick. He's sturdy. He's over 200 pounds at 6'4". So I think he's somebody that can be a 15th man and or a two-way type of a player on this Warriors roster. And they only have 9 currently under contract. I'm kind of the belief that Looney and Payton wind up back. And I agree. I think Richard, somebody said it in the chat, Richard potentially could be a GP2 replacement. Possibly. But again, I view GP2 as 11 to 15 on the roster as opposed to, or 9 to 13 on the roster as opposed to guys that you're basically going to be counting on a night in, night out basis to be playing big minutes. But again, the Warriors only, I've said this a few times, we'll just lay it out. As free agency opens on Monday afternoon, and I think we're going to start maybe even as soon as tonight, and certainly by tomorrow and heading into the weekend, I think we're going to start to see a lot of the leaks of this player intends to sign with this team Monday at 3 o'clock Pacific, and this team is garnering interest, and we've already seen a little bit of it this week. Not a lot. It's been more trade-centric, I feel like, than free agent-centric, but there's been a ton of the Jonathan Kuminga rumors. We'll get to the teams that have been linked to Kuminga, and really, again, the Warriors' offseason begins with the decision on Jonathan Kuminga because he is their greatest asset in terms of being able to be moved for a potential player that can help them. And then you have your exceptions and your veteran minimums and your ability to make trades after that. Fitzgerald Brown, random question, JD. Are these pick trades during the draft documented on paper and signed by the higher-ups, or are they all verbal agreements? No, I think they're documented. It's all documented, but it's just in the logistics of the NBA, and it really sucks, I think. They basically, the teams that, the Warriors made the pick for Phoenix of Brea. And so he technically was a Warriors pick, but they had it agreed on paper that no, the Suns tell the Warriors who to pick. The Warriors submit the pick. Brea puts on the Warriors hat, which I think is kind of silly. The NFL does it the opposite way. By the way, we have another little bit of breaking news, and then I'll finish that thought. Per Shams, this is huge news. Per Shams, Kyle, Kansas 7-footer Hunter Dickinson has agreed to a 2-way deal with the New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh, I thought you were going to say in China.
We've got a Dickinson in the NBA, ladies and gentlemen. That's worth a breaker. That's worth a breaker, Kyle. But no, yeah, all those trades are agreed to. He ended up at Kansas. He was at Michigan before that. The 7-footer. But yeah, all those trades are agreed to. So the Warriors made the pick for the Suns. The Suns made the 52nd pick for the Warriors, and then they agreed they would trade. And then the Warriors picked up the 59th pick, and then they had an agreement in principle with the Grizzlies, I think it was, to move off of that pick, and they moved Justinian Jessup and all that. Obviously, anytime you're moving up, you're going to be giving up something for the right to move up, and then you're flipping, obviously, back to 59. Robert Brown, Dickinson was better at Michigan. Yes, he was. But, yeah, I don't JMU22, guys, we are screwed. Essentially did nothing with this draft. Can't sign free agents. JK wants to be gone. Steve also wants him gone. Don't have a legit – guys, they're not screwed. And, tonight was never going to be Tonight was never going to shape the Warriors roster in any meaningful way. It just wasn't. Like, there was nobody the Warriors are going to pick tonight where 2025, 26, that guy's going to make an impact and be a rotation closing player in playoff games. I get it. People get worked up about the draft. People get excited about it. It's a great couple of nights. But there was nothing. Like, shake it off. Don't take it so seriously. Like, we're talking about somebody that may wind up playing a year or two in Australia before the Warriors even worry about what he can do. And then we're talking about somebody else in Will Richard that maybe can be a 13 to 17 man on the roster that can defend a little bit. And Gene, I do agree with this. The non-athletic part. Money saver picks, I suppose. 52 and 56, still non-athletic roster. Mike Dunleavy, by the way, this via Dalton Johnson. He is meeting with the media currently. We'll read some quotes. We'll try and get some of the sound from it coming up. Alex Tui is a 4 that can play multiple positions. So he's a 4, but he can play multiple positions. I was watching a little bit of the Warriors put out like a little hype video, and he can handle it a little bit. Like, he was like getting out in transition a little bit. He was getting out in transition a little bit. So we'll see. But, yeah, I'm awaiting what Dunleavy says as it relates to the ability to maybe have him play a little bit in Australia. We shall see about all of that. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Diggum 117, did the Warriors help the top of the roster with what they did tonight? No, they didn't. The Warriors' offseason really begins after the draft, unless there was going to be some kind of trade that was going to go down. And I don't think that the Warriors, I mean, you look at the timeline, and a lot of the big things that went down this week, the KD trade to Houston, the Poole trade from Washington to New Orleans for C.J. McCollum, the Celtics sending Drew Holiday to Portland, and then Porzingis to Atlanta. You know, a lot of the big dominoes over the last few days, the Warriors' big domino move, if they choose to make it, and I think there's a lot of signs that we're going to get into that they really have to choose to make it, is to move Kuminga. But they can't really move Kuminga until Monday because Kuminga is technically a free agent. All these other trades are teams and players that are under contract, and their seasons are done. So it basically, John Jay, I called him Aussie Draymond. He's more Aussie slow-mo, though. He was moving in transition. That's pretty funny. So we'll see. But the Warriors' offseason truly begins now. Begins tonight, begins tomorrow, and we'll see what the Warriors have lined up, if anything. But you knew it wasn't going to be one of those dominoes that leaked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through the 2 draft nights because, again, the Warriors' biggest chip is Kuminga. The entire offseason hinges on what do they ultimately do with Jonathan Kuminga. No Dallas. Does anyone really think any of these second-round players get regular time with this team? I thought y'all was talking about going deep in the playoffs. Yeah, they're not. They're not. Second rounders typically don't. They don't. Eddie 757, Brea was there. Second rounders are not typically contributors. Sometimes you get lucky like QP. However, Brea was there at 41. 6'6", led the NCAA in three-point shooting percentage. We needed the shooting. and they still need the shooting. And I'm telling you, they're going to end up with 2 players in the next couple of weeks, maybe 3, that are all shooters. They're going to end up with, and for those that have heard me at different points when I've been filling in here over the last 6 weeks, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna reset it for everybody. And we're gonna get into the Kuminga, because once I get rolling, we're gonna end up breaking Kyle's bank here with the commercials. So 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. We'll get into the latest on Kuminga. We'll get into the Warriors' primary targets. A lot of names, more from the chat. As it is our Dubs Draft Show on the Sports Leader.
This is Sports Phone KNBR. Dial the digits or send us a text at 415-808-KNBR. We're streaming on YouTube all damn day at KNBR 1045.
That's the big domino there, Jonathan Kuminga. Either retaining him, and the Warriors are comfortable bringing him back at a particular number potentially, but they are also open-minded that this could end up in a sign and trade. And one team to keep an eye on for Jonathan Kuminga is the Miami Heat. I'm told they are expected to be a potential suitor for him. They missed out on Kevin Durant. Yeah. And so you look out into the wing marketplace. What wing can you go get? And they do look at Jonathan Kuminga potentially there. So is there a deal to be had come July 1 in free agency? And what does that net the Warriors? Because clearly Jonathan Kuminga feels he's ready for an improved role, feels he's ready to go somewhere else and be one of the top 3 options on any given night. And so you think about Miami.
All right, Shams there on Jonathan Kuminga among the latest. As we welcome you back, our Dubs OT Sports Phone Draft Show, Draft and Free Agency Special. The draft is complete. We're into hour number 2. We're going to be with you until 9 o'clock. The Warriors have made a couple of selections. We'll reset that very quickly, and then we'll get into the latest on Jonathan Kuminga. We're also going to be joined by Greg Silver between now and 9 o'clock as well, as we dive deeper into the Warriors offseason and what needs to be done here to augment this roster. I don't think there was anything potentially that they really could have done tonight that would have made a dramatic impact, as the Warriors did move off of the 41st pick in exchange for, initially in a trade with the Suns, for 52 and 59. The Suns then, again, the Suns ended up taking Kobe Brea, the Kentucky guard, sharpshooter, at number 41. He goes to Phoenix in the pick that the Warriors had. The Warriors end up at 52. Alex Tui, the forward from Australia, 6'8", as he is 21 years old. According to Mike Dunleavy, a 4 that can play multiple positions. Intelligent, versatile, maturity stood out on both ends in the NBL and at the NBA Combine. Weaknesses, those his strengths via ESPN. Weaknesses, an average athlete, made strides as a shooter, needs to become more consistent. I think he was a 30% three-point shooter, so obviously that's not going to cut it. 26 for 86 in the 2024-25 season. Warriors were set to pick at 59. They moved up to 56. They draft Will Richard, the guard from Florida, 6'4", 206. Catch-and-shoot player. He's got a 6'9" 3/4 wingspan, so he's got almost 6 inches on the wingspan above his listed height. And the Warriors move up from 59 and wanted to make sure they could get him. He was a 3-and-D player on Florida's national championship team, and somebody that initially was not figuring potentially to be drafted. So Will Richard to the Warriors there. All right, we heard the clip from Shams. Let's get into the Warriors offseason, because the days ahead are far more important to the Warriors and next season than the days that have just passed. And you heard Shams there. I'm just going to start here, Kyle. Are we really buying that Miami's interested in Kuminga? Like that was my first thought when I heard that. Because he does not seem like a Miami Heat kind of a player. Also, part 2, if you read the Anthony Slater pieces, he spent time with Kuminga in Cleveland, I believe it was, and going through his offseason workouts. That piece from Slater made it pretty abundantly clear that Kuminga's not really interested in filling a role. He's not really interested in being it really was framed in a manner that I want to be one of the guys. I want to be the guy. Like, I want to be the 1 or the 2 option, which he is not going to be on the Golden State Warriors in 2025-26, even if the Warriors find themselves in a position where they're unable to move him. But my initial thought is, God, he really doesn't seem like a Miami type of a player. Pat Riley and Spo really think You know, and because the first thing you got to coach up with Kuminga is his motor and his desire to want to be able to focus on things other than scoring. He basically, and again, this was one of my primary takeaways from the Slater article, basically wants to focus on scoring and getting 20 shots a night and being a lead dog, and winning's optional and going to do whatever and get the touches and take the shots and have a nice payday and rebounding and defense and all that. Who needs that? So to me, this is even, and I think it's interesting how things shake out. He was gone at the moment in which Steph Curry hurt his hamstring in Minneapolis in Game 1. He was gone in that second-round series. And then he comes in and has to be the primary scorer, the secondary scorer next to Jimmy Butler, basically the primary scorer. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, the base year compensation rule where the Warriors can only take back half of his first year on his new contract makes it complicated, and he's really talented, which he is. Nobody's disputing the talent. It's just development. And again, it goes back to that belief of, he thinks of himself as a Kobe or Kawhi, and Steve Kerr thinks of him as an Aaron Gordon or a Sean Marion. Like that in and of itself is a problem. He also, again, just comes off as somebody that doesn't want to fill a role. And the Warriors are not in a position, salary trade logistics aside, they're just not in a position to keep him around and continue to develop him and make him a lead option when Steph's not playing or Steph's not on the court. It's too difficult. It's too difficult. Like, we've seen it. It doesn't work. Like, they can't. And I'm sorry. Let's just also be really blunt and honest. Kuminga doesn't want to be with the Warriors anymore. And I don't blame him. But the other part of that is the Warriors, other than maybe Joe Lacob, don't want Kuminga around either. But everybody's kind of playing nice because nobody's got cap space other than Brooklyn to sign him to an offer sheet. And so he needs the Warriors to be able to facilitate a sign and trade somewhere. The Warriors need him because they want him to try to go to a team to where there are assets that the Warriors would want to take back in some kind of a sign and trade. Everybody kind of needs everybody. So everybody's kind of playing nice. But, yeah, my takeaway off of the Slater piece and all of that is basically he doesn't want to come back and be the third or the fourth option and come off the bench. And, like, it just is a misfit. And I'm sorry, if the Warriors are going to have a shot at a title next year, it's not going to be hanging on to Kuminga and then trying to work it out all year when the coaching staff and the key players on the team don't want it and he doesn't want it. Like, that is just a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for disaster. That, like, if the Warriors are going to win a title, they have to look to add to this roster with players that fit. And Kuminga's the number one asset. This is what I've said all along. It's not that Kuminga's not talented. It's not that Kuminga can't go on and be an all-star in the future. It's the fact that he's their number one asset to use to get better. And you can't waste that. You just can't waste it. And I'm of the belief that harmony is incredibly important for the Warriors next year. They have to add talent, but harmony is the most important thing. So let's look at some of these teams. And I kind of Miami does not seem like a fit. Sacramento, it was reported last night. It was Sam Amick, so it's a credible reporter. Sam Amick wrote last night, Kings are interested. Kings are going to watch the restricted free agency. Now, the Kings don't have cap space to make an offer. I was joking with somebody earlier today, man, if the Kings had cap space, they might offer him $40 million a year just to make the Warriors do something stupid, or Vivek trying to screw with Joe Lacob's favorite player. Whatever it is. But the Kings being interested, I understand. The Pelicans being interested, I understand. The Bulls being interested, I understand. These are all the teams that have been linked via reporting. Brooklyn, not as much, although previously, but not really in the last week. So Brooklyn, I think right now is kind of the outlier. Miami doesn't seem to fit. Like Miami, and again, I will fully admit I'm wrong, and a few people in the chat are like, well, JD, if Pat Riley and Spo want Kuminga, then that's, they're pretty sharp. But I'm not really buying that one. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't see Pat Riley and Spo saying, yeah, we got to get this guy, and he's going to be our franchise player with Bam Adebayo and all that. I don't see it. Could be wrong. Let's get into another thing. We got a little update here, and maybe we can pull the audio from this. But it's via Anthony Slater. Questions from Mike Dunleavy's post-draft presser on Jonathan Kuminga's desire or non-desire to be with the Warriors, factoring into restricted free agency. The quote, and I'll read it. I think from his end, ultimately, he's the one that has to sign the contract. If it happens with us, it's reflective of his desire to be here. That's kind of a non-answer answer. And Eddie757, I agree. Reasonable basketball minds can disagree. That's true. Going back to wow, Pat and Spo really, could they really think that? It's not nothing. It's definitely not nothing. 100%. Now, you start to look at some of these other teams. I think the Warriors can't play the charade of bringing back. Now, ultimately, it's tough because if you can't find players in a deal that you want to take back, and it doesn't have to necessarily be it doesn't necessarily mean because Kuminga would go to Miami, you have to take Miami players back. Or because Kuminga goes to Sacramento, you have to take King. You can do a 3, 4, 5, and we saw the Warriors do a 6-team deal last year to get Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson and all the different moves that they ended up making. I mean, it got folded into this massive deal that allowed Klay Thompson to move on and get paid and all of that kind of stuff. But for the purposes of this discussion, and again, I think you just got to rip the Band-Aid off and let's end the charade. Let's end the pretending. Let's end the pretending that it can work. And you can't not want to play Draymond at the 5 and then also be like, yeah, Kuminga's going to play 30 minutes a game. Because Kuminga really can only play the 4. And that was proven for the 4th year in a row last year. Basically, Kuminga and Draymond have to be your 4-5 for Kuminga to be able to function. So for all of the discussion about the Warriors wanting to get a 5 to where Draymond isn't going to have to play as much 5 and all of that, that kind of goes out the window if you're going to wind up with, keeping Jonathan Kuminga. Let's play this out. Miami, look, I would do Wiggins. I would do Wiggins, and I go back to this, we'll go through the teams. If it's Miami, I would take Andrew Wiggins back. Now the problem with that is, and again, it all depends on what Jonathan Kuminga's number is. But you look right now, and Andrew Wiggins for 25-26 is making 28.2. If Jonathan Kuminga signs a $25 million a year contract, let's just say, then only 12 and a half of that would be able to be taken back by the Warriors. So the Warriors in this instance, and this is where it gets tricky, the Warriors would have to add another 10, 12, $13 million type player to that deal in order to make it work. So how does Jonathan Kuminga wind up potentially back on the Warriors? Wiggins come back. The Warriors have to give up another player in the deal. And that's where it gets tricky because I would – and look, the Warriors would have done this if they could have, and the salary structure didn't allow it. If you could go back to February 5th and the NBA salary rules allowed you to trade Jonathan Kuminga and the 20th pick last night for Jimmy Butler straight up, the Warriors would have done it in a heartbeat. Kuminga would be gone, and Wiggins would have been on the team with Jimmy Butler. That would have happened. So if you in a vacuum could say, yeah, Kuminga for Wiggins, you do it in a heartbeat. I would do that in a heartbeat. But would you do Kuminga and Moody for Wiggins? Like that's where it gets a little dicey. Like, would you really want to do that? Maybe it's Buddy Hield and Kuminga for Wiggins. That would also put it right there. Eddie757, can we convince Sack to deal Monk and Murray for JK and Buddy? I have no idea what Sack is trying to do. I don't think anybody has any idea what Sack's trying to do, but it's a good question. And they've actually, I think, drafted well tonight and last night. We talked about the Stanford center. We talked about the guy from Colorado State that they traded in and got at 24 a little bit early in the show because we had a call on it. But, yeah, Sack still has DeRozan, loser, Levine, loser. Sabonis really doesn't want to be there. Like, they have these vets that are just losing players. And then they have – and Sabonis, I think, is Sabonis at this stage is actually, I think, a higher level player than DeRozan or Levine, even though those other guys score more. But and then they've got Monk, who I think is a useful player, and then they've got Keon Ellis. They don't have very many good young players. They have Keon Ellis and Keegan Murray and the two guys that they picked tonight. That's basically it. And Devin Carter. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right. So, yeah, I don't know what they're – I don't think they totally know. Like, they should rip it down to the studs. That's what they should do. But, they've also been rumored to signing Russell Westbrook. Like, they might either tear it down to the studs or sign Russell Westbrook to be their starting point guard with Levine and DeRozan and Sabonis. That would be fun. That would be fun. Oh, my God. You imagine Russell Westbrook with the Kings with Levine and DeRozan? That would be freaking hilarious.
Who's going to pass the ball?
Nobody. Sabonis. Sabonis is going to pass the ball. But you nailed it. Eddie757 nailed it. It's and this is kind of how Jaquez came. It's what players would the Warriors be interested off of these teams? Duncan Robinson, I don't really think they were. It's Wiggins and Jaquez. I think Highsmith is somebody the Warriors could be interested in too. Actually, as a wing player that can defend, athletic, like he'd be kind of a bench player, but he could play a role. I think that Kuminga hasn't wanted to play. Obviously, a lower end talent. But Wiggins to me and Jaquez would be the guy, but it's really Wiggins. Like if you're trading Kuminga to the Heat in a sign and trade, Wiggins is the guy you'd want. Yeah, Jovic, I guess. I don't think they're giving up Jovic. I don't think they're giving up Jovic for Kuminga. Like that, I don't see that. But yeah, he's talented. For Sacramento, to me it's really there's two players, maybe three, off of Sacramento's roster that I'd even want. Keegan Murray would be number one. If you could get Keegan Murray, I would do that. And but the Kings have said they're not trading Keegan Murray. which could be for show. But you start to look at contracts, and Keegan Murray is somebody who's, he was the 4th pick in the draft, and he's still on his rookie deal. So Keegan Murray's going to make 11.1. So Keegan Murray would actually fit in the base year compensation thing. If, let's say Kuminga signed a 4-year, $100 million contract, and you could take half that back. Yeah, Keon Ellis is a young GP2. Keon Ellis is not some prospect. But he is one of their few players who can defend a little bit on that entire roster, and he is young. But Keegan Murray would be the guy. And yeah, I don't know that Sack. I don't think I would do that in a heartbeat if I'm the Warriors. I would, and the other one is Malik Monk. Now Malik Monk's a little bit different because you look at his contract, and he signed a big one. But Malik Monk's contract, and it gets back to the 3 different types of players that the Warriors need, right? They need a wing that can shoot. Keegan Murray would fit that void. 3-and-D wing or wing that can shoot, and Keegan Murray and Andrew Wiggins are both 3-and-D wings, or you want a combo guard. And Monk would fit the combo guard role. Monk, 18.7 next year, then 20.1, then 21.5. So, again, if you go with the base year compensation, you have to divide Kuminga's salary in half in terms of what you can take back. If it's a $30 million deal, you can only take back 15. So the Warriors would have to include another, a little bit in that deal to get Monk to be part of it. But it would basically be Kuminga for Monk. You want to do Kuminga for Monk straight up? I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to do that. I don't know, but Monk would help him. And yeah, I would rather they're different players. But I don't think I would do Monk. I don't know that I'd want to do Monk straight up for Jonathan Kuminga. The other player, and this is much less significant, because again, we're talking about the Warriors potentially having to throw more into this deal. The other player that I think would be of interest to the Warriors is Valanciunas. Valanciunas, I think could help them, although he's not a stretch big, but I do think he's a big that as a backup could help them. So could you get Keegan Murray and Valanciunas? Make it work. Those are the players off of that roster that I'd be interested in. Chicago, it's Kobe White, combo guard Young. That would be the play there. And Trey Murphy, although I think that's a pipe dream, but Trey Murphy is the guy that would be the target, obviously, with the Pelicans. And look, the Pelicans have done some stupid stuff maybe this week. I mean, they go get Jordan Poole. They do the weird swap for Queen where they gave up an unprotected pick next year to Atlanta to get to, 13 to get Queen. Joe Dumars is running the show there. So we'll see. But, yeah, those are the players of interest off of those rosters. Obviously, Cam Johnson, Brooklyn. Those are the names off of the known Kuminga potential suitors and players that I would want. Yeah, and I don't think Murphy's happening either, but those are the names. Those are the names. I like Monk, but I don't know. That one I kind of wonder. Would you do it for Monk would be a really good backup guard, sixth man, that could close some games. He's defensively limited, though, but he kind of can run point. I mean, he really is a backup. He's a combo guard. He's not a true point. He's not a true two. He's very streaky. In some matchups against some teams, he can, as we've seen him do to the Warriors, he's absolutely cooked the Warriors at times. There are teams he just cooks. But is he a finishing player? That's the question. Is he a finishing player? He's a regular season player for sure. And that's the other thing that the Warriors definitely need. The Warriors need guys that can just play in the regular season and get you to 50-plus wins, even if Steph and Jimmy have to miss some time. Monk is 100% one of those players. You could start Monk for Steph, playing with Pods. You could start him for Pods, playing with Steph. You could go a lot of different directions with Monk. And he can fill it up. And he's a really good regular season type player. But you got one shot with this Kuminga move. And again, I think you need that wing shooter, Keegan Murray type. You need the combo guard, Malik Monk type. And then I think in a perfect world, you get a stretch big. And those are the three players that help fill out the roster. All right, 808 KNBR. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk to Greg Silver and more from the YouTube chat as we roll on here. It's our Dubs OT Sports Phone Draft Show on the Sports Leader.
Sound off on the sports leader. Sports phone KNBR keeps rolling right here and on the all-new KNBR app.
Look, I think for both sides, we'd like to get something figured out as soon as possible, but that's the way it goes. I think sometimes there's restricted free agency, so not going to stress out about it too much. But I think the main thing is making the right decisions, figuring the whole thing out, whether that's day one or day 10 or whatever it is. So, got to be prepared to take it as far as it goes. But yeah, the priority I would think for both sides is to get something done early.
How much is his desire to come back or not to come back going to play into, beyond just the negotiations, money and years wise, just his desire to be here?
Well, yeah, it's important. I mean, I think from his end, ultimately, he's the one as a free agent that has to sign the contract. So by him doing that, if that happens with us, that's reflective, I think, of his desire to be here. And, we'll see, as they say.
Basically, Jonathan Kuminga doesn't have a choice. I mean, if the Warriors can't find a trade that works for them in terms of players that they can take back to improve the roster, and look, we've talked about it. I mean, Jonathan Kuminga was not a part of the good Warriors, the 23-8 after the Jimmy Butler trade Warriors. So, moving him for somebody that can be a capable in their prime type rotation player, whether it's the stretch wing 3-and-D guy or the combo guard Kobe White type, you're not going to be losing anything that Jonathan Kuminga brings, because Jonathan Kuminga didn't bring anything to that team that went 23-8 down the stretch of the season. But the reality is, if the Warriors can't find a fit and it makes more sense for them to be able to bring him back and be able to trade him for the full value of his contract in season, then that's what Jonathan Kuminga is going to have to do, like, if he wants to get paid, period. So it again, like, we can get into leverage and everybody kind of playing nice, and both sides need each other, but it's a reality. So, if he signs the deal with the Warriors, then yeah, he's committed to being with the Warriors until the Warriors look to find the right deal in December. I think it's too far gone. I saw a few people in the chat getting into it. I do think it's too far gone in terms of the player that Kuminga wants to be, the player that the Warriors want him to be. And again, I think everybody's tried to hold it together to keep Kuminga's value as high as possible, but it's a wrap, and the Band-Aid needs to be pulled, to use the words of our next guest here. And I think that's the direction that it's heading between now and ultimately 3 o'clock on Monday, the 30th, when free agency formally opens. All right, quick recap before we bring in Greg Silver of what the Warriors have done tonight. They were originally on the clock at 41. They traded with Phoenix. 41 goes to the Suns. And the Suns ended up selecting Kobe Brea with that pick, the Kentucky guard, at number 41, the sharpshooter. He goes to Phoenix. Warriors move to 52 and 59. At 52, they take Australian forward Alex Tui. And then they end up moving up from 59 to 56 in a trade with the Grizzlies, which sends future protected second-round pick along with the draft rights to Justinian Jessup from a few years back, who'd been playing overseas. So the Warriors moved up to 56 and acquired guard Will Richard from the national champion Florida Gators squad. 6'4", 206, 3-and-D wing, but he's 6'4", so more of a guard, but with a 6'10", 6'9 3/4 wingspan. So he plays bigger than he is, and is toolsy and can shoot and potentially defend, even while not maybe being the best athlete. So that's what the Warriors have done tonight. Let's go to the let's go to the Uma guest line. Bring in our guy Greg Silver here on the Sports Leader. What's going on, Greg?
What's up, guys? It's been a while. I feel like last Dubs OT was more than a couple of months ago, but here we are. We're back. The off season's heating up, and being on this program is way better than anything Shams Charania could tweet in the next couple of days. I mean, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and look, we'll get your take on tonight. We can keep that part of it short. The Warriors moving some things around. I think the one thing that stood out to me, and I mentioned this earlier, Greg, a lot of Sion James and Lanier and Elijah Martin And, even Brea, who went in their slot at 41, most of the guys that the Warriors were linked to at 41 were gone in the 30s, if not all. And so I kind of was wondering, did the Warriors sense that was going to be the case and made almost a preemptive strike to move back into the 50s with both of their picks as opposed to sticking at 45? But just kind of give me your general thoughts on the trade and the two guys that they selected.
Yeah, I think my thought on the trade was that they felt good enough about the package they were getting when those guys in the 30s who went that they thought maybe could fall to 41 were off the board. You'd rather get a couple of different guys that could be impact players than just one if it's all going to be more or less the same at 41 versus 52/59 and then ultimately 56. I mean, draft talk I always laugh a little bit at, and we had a great time doing 49ers draft coverage. I know you were down at Levi's and I went to the event in San Jose, but you can analyze so much on draft night, but ultimately you don't really know how things are going to play out. So I look at the draft picks as what are the Warriors seeing as their biggest needs? And I know you and I have had this discussion many times off the air. I know that was a question you asked Mike Dunleavy in the season-ending presser. And we had Dalton Johnson on our show earlier this morning, and I sort of asked him the same thing. Like, what do you see as the most pressing need? Is it a rim-protecting big? Is it a stretch big? Is it a wing kind of player? And based on the couple of picks, I mean, I'm not surprised they ultimately went with the wing. Alex Tui seems like a potential Steve Kerr kind of player with a guy that could be high IQ, willing to fit into a role. If he gets those shooting percentages a little bit more consistent, that could have value in this offense. And then Will Richard was a lot of fun to watch throughout that tournament. And if anyone remembers watching the championship game, Florida and Houston, Florida was actually dead in the water and couldn't make a shot for a lot of that first half. And Will Richard was sort of keeping that offense afloat. I think he ended with 18 points in that game. So that was a fun player, but the college game and the pro game, two very different things. So I'm not going to overreact to a great tournament run on the championship team and translate that exactly how that's going to work in the NBA. But we do know that the Warriors have gotten some contributions early on from second-round picks recently, going back to Trace Jackson-Davis and Quentin Post and Guy Santos after splitting time in the G League. So I do think there's value in analyzing these type of players because this isn't just a hypothetical, they might contribute in 2-3 years. Like, no, they could contribute as soon as this year, depending on how everything shakes out. So welcome to the Bay, Alex Tui and Will Richard.
Yeah, and I didn't see, I'll go back and review the press conference. We were on the air. I didn't see a clip or a quote, but one of my questions would be, is Tui somebody that is going to play, is he going to come over or is he going to play overseas for another year or two? I feel like he could be somebody. That was my first thought. Like, is he going to play? He's only 21. Could he play a year or even a couple of years still over in Australia and then wind up, coming back maybe later and being a part of the equation? Justinian Jessup, who they moved, was somebody that it never did end up coming over, right? Like, they had his rights, I think, going back to 2020, never did. So I'm interested a little bit on that. Richard, but again, we're talking two-way / 14th, 15th man on the roster type spots here. I do think Richard, though, with the ability to defend and the wingspan and knock down open shots, is he's a guy that I would project almost for sure as a 15th man type. Maybe he's a two-way because I don't think he was projected to be drafted in most mocks at all. He wasn't even in the NBA media guide, full disclosure, with a player profile, the book that the league puts out with information on guys that are expected to be picked. He didn't even make the cut on that. I think there were 100 names maybe in there, give or take. And obviously 59 picks, but he's somebody that I think you look at the skill set, and they clearly believe he's somebody that could be a back-end part of the roster. Let's get into Kuminga. We're talking about Greg Silver. We're talking to Greg Silver. Everything obviously hinges on that. What do you buy among the reporting and rumors of the last, let's say, 72 hours? It's basically been Miami, Sacramento, Chicago, the Pelicans are always kind of lurking. Not really Brooklyn this week, but they've been linked in the past. What do you think of any of those teams? Is it real? Is it not? What say you?
Yeah, Miami is one that really fascinates me because my first thought was not necessarily dismissing it. I know you were thinking, are they serious about it? I'm not saying they're not, but if
that
we
felt
also
agent
look
driven
back,
to me. That felt agent driven. That felt like, let's try and find a team that has an impressive resume of, if they like my player, whoa, that's going to make people think a little bit differently about my player. If Spo and Pat Riley are interested, then these other teams better step up to the plate. But anyway, continue.
yeah, I mean, look, I just thought that if Miami was unwilling to part ways with Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic, and Haywood Highsmith in order to get Kevin Durant, it gave me a little bit of pause why they would want to maybe do that if they were to get Jonathan Kuminga. Now, I know that Kevin Durant is a much older player than Kuminga. In Miami, you could make the argument that they're in a little bit more of a retool kind of phase rather than what Houston ultimately is, with all this young talent, but winning a lot of games now where they could go and compete for a championship by adding Kevin Durant. So maybe Miami sees their timeline a little bit differently. Eric Spoelstra has always gotten the most out of his players, but I think the thing that we do agree on is that he doesn't seem, and Kuminga doesn't seem like your typical Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra kind of player. The Kings kind of coming onto the scene really fascinate me because, and you know this very well, Vivek Ranadive is predictably unpredictable. And so I don't necessarily know what could come out of that situation and if he would be willing to offer a lot of money and maybe stick it to Joe Lacob a little bit, his NorCal owner rival, and Lacob, of course, being the winner. And Vivek has, got things on the right track for a moment and then gotten in his own way as he's continued to do. So Kings prospects certainly interested me. I heard you talking about Malik Monk a little bit before I came on. Keegan Murray, obviously a player that is similar in the wing kind of ability, but also can shoot the ball at a much better rate. So that was fascinating. And New Orleans, truthfully, I don't know what New Orleans is. I don't know what to make of them. But the storyline of Jonathan Kuminga reuniting with Jordan Poole, I suppose that has some intrigue to it.
Yeah, I think that's, New Orleans, I think, kind of like Sacramento. And look, I will say with Scott Perry running the show in Sacramento, they don't have a complete buffoon as a GM or anything like that. I mean, Scott Perry is pretty well respected. It's not, but as always, there is a pull between the general manager and the owner and what the general manager actually is allowed to do in terms of things like that. So I do think in some ways they are a little bit more stable at the general manager spot, obviously because he's new. The prior GM there, Monty McNair, had fallen out of favor, so I think he was getting pushed around a little bit more the last year or two as to what he was going to be allowed to do. Vivek basically with his daughter and Jeremy Lamb signed DeRozan. We've talked about that whole thing. And so, that was a guy that the GM and the coach didn't want. And now they've got DeRozan. So you never quite know what the Kings are doing there. Let's end it on this note because I am obviously overdue for a break here, of course. Give me one guard, one wing, and one big, if you could choose, realistically speaking, that you think could help this Warriors team. One guard, one wing, one big, free agency or trade. Here as everybody's attention shifts to that.
Ooh, okay, that's a great question. And while I'm on limited time and got to think off the top of my head, I'll probably stick to the teams that we were just discussing as sign and trade possibilities. Guard, I'm going to go Malik Monk with the reasoning that I heard you getting into a little bit before I came on. That is a player that can absolutely help you and keep you afloat in the regular season. And I'm not saying he can't ball out in the playoffs. We've seen it firsthand here in the Bay Area, but you can't really go into next year expecting Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler in particular as the scorers of this team to be playing 70-plus games. So if they play 60, let's say, Malik Monk can be someone that gets 30, 35 minutes on a given handful of nights and start alongside Steph or a Pajemski or whatever have you. For that reason, I'm very intrigued by someone like Malik Monk, a little bit more experienced, but has the motor and has the scoring instinct. Wing, I get that this is maybe a little bit more of a pipe dream given the salary that this player is set to make. If there was a world in which the Warriors could get Andrew Wiggins back without having to be the second guy, but rather the third offensive option and put him in a lineup of Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Steph Curry, I think that would be perfect for him. I still think he has a lot of value as the player that he is, but clearly he was not suited to be the number 2 option on a championship contending team. And he's actually having a pretty good year last year prior to all of this. So that leaves me with a big, let's see. If I could go big, I'll probably go with someone that we have brought up a lot in the past and hasn't really revisited his name in a while. I'm always intrigued a little bit by a Bobby Portis if he was to end up leaving Milwaukee.
Yeah. I like Bobby Portis because Bobby Portis he's not a great defender, but the one thing I like about him is he's a likes to fight guy. Like Bobby Portis will just be battling with somebody, and then all of a sudden he'll just be swinging. Like they'll just be swinging, and like so I respect Bobby Portis for that. I like that. That's kind of how I get down, Greg.
Yeah.
Like what is going on?
And look, let's be honest. You know, Jimmy Butler was the ultimate Zen guy who was like, I'm not even going to react and stay out of fights. Draymond Green is your enforcer, but he doesn't need to be the one getting head on. If Bobby Portis has to step up and take an ejection or 2 or 3 over the season, look, that's got some real value in this locker room. I'm not saying that doesn't hold some value.
I don't think the big necessarily has to be a closing player, a finishing games player in the playoffs type. So I think a Portis could fit more than maybe the other positions. I think the wing or the guard, assuming they don't get both, I think the wing or the guard have to have to be able to be in the closing lineup. That to me I think is like price of admission. Like and Wiggins we know could be. Monk I'm not quite sure. That's the one pause. I think some matchups he could be, others maybe he couldn't be. That would be my one concern on Monk, although I think it's the same concern for the guy that I'm going to mention coming back on the other side. Greg, I really appreciate it. I'm up against it because I've been yapping here with the folks in the chat for the last almost 2 hours, so I got to get a quick time out. But thanks for the time, man, and have a great show tomorrow, and looking forward to being with you next week.
Yeah, I was going to say, this was a lot of fun. You should consider coming on my show sometime, maybe for like 3 times next week. That'd be cool.
Yeah, three times next week, and I think 5 times the next week. So, yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. No question. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, JD.
All right, that's Greg Silver. We'll come back, and we'll wrap things up. Some final thoughts from the YouTube chat. It is our sports phone, Dubs OT, Dubs drafts, and free agency special here on the Sports Leader.
Speak your mind on the sports leader. Sports phone KNBR keeps coming at you. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
All right, final segment, our Dubs draft and free agency special. Thanks to Greg Silver for hopping on. Big thanks to Kyle Hart. Great to have the gang back together for the first time in, about 6 weeks here. And the best YouTube chat in sports, talking about the Warriors draft picks at 52 and 56. Alex Toohey, the Australian forward, Will Richard, the Florida guard. And another roster move, Kyle, here tonight. we talking about two ways and a lot of players being signed. Former L.J. Cryer from Houston, the Houston guard, who averaged 16 points and shot 42% from three-point range, he is signing an Exhibit 10 deal with the Warriors, with Golden State. So that gives him, right of first refusal to play basically in Santa Cruz, and there's some rights to the Warriors being able to maybe later potentially sign him to a two-way or an active roster deal. So there you go. Another addition to the Warriors roster here tonight. I wanted to read one text, and then I wanted to give my three. I asked Greg Silver, give me your number one target guard, give me your number one target wing, give me your number one target big. I'm going to give you all three of mine. But I wanted to read one text here, and then we're going to get some chats, and then we're going to call it a night. And, of course, in Dubs OT, true Dubs OT fashion, we're going to blow past the top of the 9 o'clock hour a little bit because we end when we want to end, Kyle. That's how we roll, man. Whether it's February or the playoffs or draft night. It's just how we do it. 650, Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line. Kuminga has been belabored so much at this point. You guys sound like a broken record. Better to not broach the subject. Somebody doesn't know anything about broadcast. It is honestly the number one subject in Bay Area sports, aside from Rafael Devers, and with the way the Giants have played the last week, they're kind of settling back into what they were before the trade, unfortunately. Although I think the Giants are going to be good. Giants are going to be fine. It's bad series against the Marlins, but they're going to be fine. But no, Kuminga is the number one story because it relates to the Warriors' potential to become a championship contending team. Yes, Jacob Violante with a quick cameo to say goodnight to everyone. Thank you, Jacob Violante, as well. But yeah, the Kuminga conversation, I'm with you. Let's hope it can come to a conclusion here soon. But if we know one thing about the Warriors and Kuminga, it's kind of the storyline that will never end and never resolve. But if you said, JD, what do you think is going to happen? I do think the Warriors are going to end up doing a sign and trade for Jonathan Kuminga, and he's going to wind up somewhere, and the Warriors are going to wind up with a role player that will make them better than they were on May the 14th when they got eliminated in the second round in Minneapolis. Let me get into let's go one, and Kyle, I want you can weigh in on this as well. Kobe White's the guard for me. I would want a younger guard. He can shoot the three, can start. Is he a finishing player? I think he is in the regular season, to be sure. But you look at Kobe White's contract. He's in the final year of his deal. He's only making $12.8 million. Like, to me, that's a guy you want. He's 25 years old right now. Kobe White's a guy that I think would be my ideal combo guard. Bring him off the bench. He could play with Pods. He could play with Steph. That would be the guy that, and then you have the rights to him. You could look to bring him back in that role. I think he's a higher floor Jordan Poole. I think in a lot of ways.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, I feel like Kobe White would fill that Jordan Poole void that we haven't had that kind of player come off the bench or start potentially. That
Jordan Poole without the BS.
Yeah. 2022 Jordan Poole.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that would be the guard. I mean, the wing. I mean, anybody. It seems like everything's cooled on Cam Johnson. I mean, Cam Johnson's kind of been the guy for a while that's been the wing. I would take Wiggins back. Wiggins would not be my ideal number one. To me, if you could figure out a way to get Keegan Murray, that's going to be my pick. I think Keegan Murray is being slept on in terms of his best year of his career offensively was his rookie year, which is the year they played the Warriors in the first round of the playoffs, and the Warriors won in 7. And then they asked him because they were so voided defenders, they asked him to be their primary defender. And his three-point shot is dipped. He also does tend to kind of float in games. But I think right now, Keegan Murray's somebody that his stock is down, and if you could get him and put him with the Warriors and basically be somebody that's just going to stand in the corner and shoot a lot of threes, and he can drive a closeout and hit a jumper. He can move the ball. Like he's just a very steady player, and he can defend. He can defend. So that would be kind of the perfect world. But I know a lot of people have said, JD, there's no way they're signing, or there's no way the Kings are trading him to. If they could get Kuminga and they think they're getting over on the Warriors, you might be able to do that. Atco Pest Control, I'd rather have Monk over Wiggins. I mean, we'll see. And then the big is Brook Lopez for me. I think he'd be the perfect big. I don't think the big needs to be somebody that's a closing player because Draymond Green's going to be closing. Jimmy's going to be closing. You're going to have, probably, Steph obviously is going to be closing. And then, ideally you want your wing that you acquire to be closing in that role. And then you figure out whether it's going to be Pods or is it going to be your combo guard that you signed. I guess some nights it could be your center. But I think Brook Lopez, because he is older, but you're also not going to ask him to play 30-plus minutes a night like the Bucks were doing even this past season as well. Clickbait, can we move the Moody contract? Yeah, the Moody contract can be moved. I just don't like the notion of, because of the Kuminga deal with his contract and the base player compensation where you can only take back half of what Kuminga is going to make. I don't like the idea of Kuminga and Moody to get a role player. Like, to me, you should not have to give up both, and that's where obviously it gets a little bit tricky. I know Buddy Hield really helped the team. I think Buddy Hield would be the one guy that I would deem to be expendable, especially if you're picking up shooting in three different spots. Like, if you're picking up a combo guard that can shoot, if you're picking up a wing in this Kuminga maybe plus Buddy deal who can shoot, and you're picking up a stretch big, like in a perfect world, you're getting 3 levels of shooting. If you can do that, your salary filler, I think, could be Buddy Hield. I'd like to keep Moses Moody. In my ideal world, the combo guard protects Podziemski because it lessens the need for him to have to be playing a lot for you to be successful and be playing well to be successful. I like the wing because you just need one more wing that can shoot, I feel like, with Jimmy Butler. And then the big allows you to play Draymond at the 4 and Jimmy Butler at the 3 and even Pods at the 2, all three not great shooters, and you get a little bit of floor spacing, which allows Jimmy and Pods to move it, and then whoever your backup combo guard is there. So I think that's the way to roll with it. Yeah, Robert Brown, the dream is Derek White. I almost don't feel right mentioning Derek White. Derek White would be the absolute, he would be the number one upon number one in terms of combo guard types, because he could even guard wings. But don't get me wrong, I almost feel Derek White is unattainable, and we'll see what the Celtics end up doing. They trade Jaylen Brown or they trade Derek White. But yeah, that would be names that if you could get Derek White, put him at the top of the list for sure. But yeah, I would want to keep Podziemski, Moody as well, and keep Quentin Post. You get the stretch big, Quentin Post. You can play 2 stretch bigs. You could do whatever. And yeah, I think Clickbait says White staying. It seemed like what the Celtics are trying to do is trade. Trey Murphy's another one. Trey Murphy, I kind of put Trey Murphy in the Derek White range. But they really trade Trey Murphy? He's so young and affordable and can defend. The pipe dream phase would be Derek White and Trey Murphy. But it's if it's really Kobe White and Troy Murphy. No, I'm kidding. I give Warrior fans flashback. It was really It was really Kobe White and a Keegan Murray or somebody like that. I think that could work. All right, let's get to the chats here as you listen to KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station. We get a little bit past the 9 o'clock hour here. Let's go to Kyle's Clicks. Robert Brown, speaking of silver, JD, I'd take a silver nugget at this point for Kuminga so we don't have to talk about him anymore. I think it's coming to a close. I really do. I do not think Jonathan Kuminga is going to be on the Warriors roster. And there may not be a resolution immediately, but I think the fact that there isn't a resolution quickly shows their desire to move on because they're going to take the time that's necessary to be able to move forward. JMU22, biggest problem the Dubs have is paying 3 players $140 million for the next 2 years. No amount of finagling will save us, to be honest. Well, that's the hand they've been dealt, and they've dealt themselves, actually. So, again, I think you saw if you watch this team play, they got the second star in Jimmy. He's older. Steph's older. They're going to have to hold up. It's the best chance forward. The Steph-Jimmy Butler combo is a better chance. It's a better chance than tearing it down and trying to rebuild around younger players. Got to do it. I'd rather trade the real Chicago Bulls than the Sacramento Bulls. Yes, I agree. It's funny. I was reading some of the, just for fun, because I so love to toy with Sacramento, and I have so many friends in Sacramento, but I love to kind of joke around with their fans because there's so many of them are friends. But it's interesting when the Kuminga, you'll love this guy, when the Kuminga report came up, a lot of the, like, if you read the comments or you look at some of their, like, media, it's like, oh, well, DeRozan for Kuminga, they're not getting Keegan, they're not getting Monk. It's like it'll be DeRozan and Trey Lyles and it's not going to be 1 year of DeRozan, who's a guard, it's not going to be 1 year of DeRozan. I would be highly surprised. I don't think DeRozan's somebody that would be on the Warriors list. But yeah, they were thinking they were getting some kind of a steal. Why can't we have one tall player? Why do the Warriors hate us? They are going to sign it. I do think they're going to legitimately sign a 6'11", 7-footer. I do think. Let's get another one in. That Gators team is nasty. Watched him a lot. I think Richard is nice. Yeah, I like Richard. I think that's a good. And yeah, they won the national title. I got a chance to go to their Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games at Chase as they clinched to go to the Final Four. And yeah, it's interesting. Everybody wanted Clayton. And I think before the Final Four, Walter Clayton, I think he was kind of in the Warriors' range before the run that they went on. And by the end and all the big shots that Clayton hit, he moved all the way up, into the teens, I think, last night. But Clayton was somebody. But, yeah, you kind of watch somebody that seemed like a natural fit, and then you find somebody sometimes in watching the tape of a team because you like another player, and then you find a guy like Will Richard who can really make stuff happen. Yeah, they were a fun watch. They were a really fun watch. And, yeah, as Robert says, the Florida-Texas Tech game was one of the best basketball games I've been to in 10 years. It was a terrific game. And I ended up watching the end. I felt so bad. I ended up watching the end with a group of Texas Tech fans that were ready to party. Like they were and they were kind of looking at me. We were kind of chatting. They're like, "Oh, what do you do?" Blah blah blah. We're kind of talking, and like it was a wonderful group of people, like all ages. Some older, like clearly like boosters or family went there, or maybe they went there like back in the day, like whatever it was. Like they were having a great time, and they're like, "Well, you think they got it?" And they're up 11 with like 2 minutes left or 3 minutes left. I'm like, "Yeah, I think they got it. And then they didn't got it. And I felt so bad. It was a great crowd. It was a really fun. That's always a fun event. But yeah, the Texas Tech group was small, but they were having a good time in the areas around around Chase Center. 5'5" 3-and-D D'Anthony Melton can still be a Warrior for cheap. I like him. I would bring him back. He's a combo guard but I like D'Anthony Melton. He goes in the combo guard category. And yeah, if he could stay healthy, he could definitely fill the void. Let's do one more. Jason Mishler, appreciate you. Really enjoyed listening to the conversation tonight, fellas. Thank you. That our Dubs Draft Show comment of the night. That's right, we're doing it. Clickbait, I agree with you. The Jazz drafted Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton. Both didn't want to go there. Ainge is a madman. I agree with that. Like I loved both of those. A little bonus Kyle's click from Clickbait. I thought those were two really good picks. And so the hell what if those guys don't want to go there? Like, are they going to sit out? Like they going to sit out, or are they going to sign their slotted first round? I mean, there isn't even a negotiation. Every first round pick basically gets the 4-year deal or the 2-year deal with 2 team options, and it's slotted the money that they make based on where they're picked. So it's either take the money or sit out. So I mean, what are you going to do? Like, whether you wanted to go to Utah or not? I mean, there was a player you may have heard of once upon a time that didn't want to come to the freaking Warriors. His name, and he wanted to go to the Knicks.
Yeah. Stuff.
And they wanted to, there was pretty famous player that didn't want to come to the Warriors back in the day. And the Warriors said, you know what, pal, you're coming, and you're going to like it. And it turned out to be Steph Curry.
I think he hates it here.
It all worked out. I also remember back in the day when this was back, like when the Kings traded for Chris Webber. You know, he was obviously with the Warriors, and then went to Washington, and then they traded. Everything's like 6 degrees of the Warriors and Kings tonight, right? Because it was like Mitch Richmond was with the Warriors, and then he got traded to the Kings, and then eventually Richmond got traded for Webber after Webber got traded from the Warriors to Washington, and then Mitch got traded for Webber. And that's how the Kings got Webber back in the day. And I remember Chris Webber was like, I'm not going to Sacramento. And the Kings were like, bet. And he ended up in Sacramento, and he had the best part of his career with those teams that competed for and almost won a championship. So yeah, good. Sometimes you just got to make a guy go where he doesn't want to go, and it winds up working out for the best. All right, great stuff tonight. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Stay tuned. Let us know again. Because we did some pretty good promotion, I thought, on social media of when we were coming on. I'm curious. I'm going to leave with this question, because we are going to be doing some spot shows here and there. We're also going to do some YouTube-only stream shows here and there. I want to hear from everybody in the chat that wants to just weigh in, and we'll go back through and read these. Like, what's the best way that you guys like to be notified that we're going to do a show? Do you look at Twitter X? Is it IG? Do you get the notification from the KNBR app, right? The Sports Leader app? Do you like what's the best? Do you get the notification on YouTube when we go live? Like, what's the best way to pack this room? Gene, YouTube notifications. Again, I'm not going to read, but yeah, is it the YouTube notification? Because I think we've had a pretty good crowd. But yeah, let us know in the chat, because we want to make sure we're connecting with you, especially in the off season, and letting everybody know that we're going to be here. And I'm going to be with Greg Silver next week as well. So if you can during the day, listen to the podcast. Check out the chat 10 to 2 with Greg Silver next week. Going to be a lot of fun. For Kyle and Jacob Violante and everybody in the chat, we appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon right here on The Sports Leader.